And then we'll have some other things in order. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Oh, and then April 15th will be Passover. And don't forget, we need to know if you're going to be joining us October 14th through the 16th. Let us know by April 23rd. Those of you who are in the southern part or the central, I'm sorry, in region number two, southeast region of the United States of America for us. So that's basically Southern Virginia to Georgia, and we're looking forward to being able to come down there. We'll actually be down to April 14th through the 17th. Those who want to come and say hi at some point in between there. But April 16th, we're trying to see if we can do something all together. Possibly April 15th, maybe we can meet up um, for Pasach, Passover, together as a group, right? But we are excited and thankful and grateful for another opportunity to come in front of you all again and to be here with you, to connect with you, to speak on some great things. And to the moderators, to the ministerial staff, to SOC, to those that agree with us, disagree with us, those who like what we have to say, dislike what we have to say, we are excited to have everybody on with us today. Um, and thank you for helping us. Thank you for any likes, shares, super chats, gifts, whatever it is. Your time, your talent, effort, energy, prayers, resources, whatever it is. We're thankful and grateful for everybody, for Lottie Dottie and everybody who's on here. And once again, check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And the tincture of the month, because she's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. The tincture of the month for the month of April is, in fact, I am fasting. And somebody would say, well, why would you have a medicine or something that you would take as far as natural medicine that would be there for fasting? This actually helps you to prepare for fasting, or if you are fasting, because some people do fasting in different ways, this will actually help you even while you're going on a fast to make sure that your body has some of the things that's necessary. One of the things we don't talk about fasting is that when you're fasting, you need to make sure that your body has exactly what it needs in order to even be able to go into a fast. So, um, we want to make sure that you have all those things together. And my wife, through Bloom and Flourish, is helping that out. Don't forget that she has Changing Lives Initiative, which is still going, and we're still giving to people. So if you'd like to be able to donate to that, feel free to. Today, we're going to talk about something very interesting, and we want to talk about wolves teach sheep. Now, this is not natural. This is not natural law when I say that, right? Because in nature, even though sheep do learn certain things in nature from sheep and are prepared to fight against sheep, and we actually don't find all of those things that you in nature now because wolves have kind of been killed off, and sheep in nature are kind of killed off. So it's kind of difficult to talk about these things, but for you to be able to see it in everyday life nowadays. However, we want to talk about wolves teach sheep, and that's kind of what we're in the system today, where you have the wolf who's busy telling you his story and not making sure that you're aware of the story or our story or even your story. And you lose connection with a lot of things in nature, natural law, naturally or naturally. We lose a lot of connection with who we are because we are in a position where we keep listening to the wolf who's teaching the sheep. And so we want to make sure we take some time out to talk about some differences between the wolves and the sheep. And yes, even wolves have a culture, right? Sheep have a culture, so do wolves. If you go into a pack of wolves, it is possible for a human being, this has actually played itself out over and over again, where people have done research. Usually, people that don't look like us, to be totally honest, but people have done research with wolves, and they have found that wolves have a certain culture, right? And so, if you can learn the culture, you can actually be ingratiated into that culture. How you doing, Trina? How you doing, Dawn? How you doing, Clem? How you doing, Deborah? Hello to everybody all over the place on all the platforms. We appreciate you. How are you doing, Tamika, Big Brother Thomas, Ms. Mack, Butterfly Effect, Beverly, um, Allen? Thanks for being part of the community. Kanan Allen. Hey, how you doing, Indomitable Spirit? How you doing? Uh, True Origin, Barbara, Sister Barbara, how you doing? Shalonda, thank you for the gifts. And I didn't even see it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. To everybody, Shima, if I didn't say so already, Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, that's the one I missed. I missed totally. I missed totally. It was a swinging door. Well, thank you for the swinging door. I don't think I've seen that one before. Appreciate it. Shabbat shalom, Minister Nice. How you doing, Ostrom? How you doing, Betty? Oh, my wife is on. Once again, check out the Honorable Maya, Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Thanks, babe. Love you so much. Thanks for being on. Sister Tracy, everybody who's on here. All right. If I missed you, TJ, if I missed you, please uh, charge it to my head, not to my heart. Waffle, hello. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we're talking about wolves teach sheep. That's kind of what happens in society today. And you're in bad shape because not only do wolves teach sheep, if you're trying to remain part of the system, not only are you in bad shape because wolves teach sheep, you also have to remember that wolves govern sheep. So we're in a very interesting position where the wolf is busy telling the sheep how to live. And this goes back to the times of Malcolm X, where Malcolm X taught on this. You know, what business does the wolf have telling the sheep that they shouldn't feel like they should be in a position to separate, so to speak, right? Um, so wolves teach sheep, and the system that you're in is based off of of wolf-like behavior. Even when we talk about stuff like Lupercalia, for those of you who are familiar with Lupercalia, if you're not, Lupercalia basically is the original holiday before they started calling it Lent, and actually took away from taking the leaven out of one's home and all those things. But Lupercalia is something that we know of, where people used to get together and basically follow the example of the wolf for 40 days, and that was their way, where they would have these huge orgies and different things like that, and they would come together and do a lot of wolf-like behavior. Sometimes killing was done, all types of stuff. You were supposed to, exhibit wolf-like behavior. It's cultural. For the wolf is extremely um, necessary in society today, because that's wolf-like behavior. If you talk about Roman or anything romantic with Roman antics, how you doing, Brother Morel? Hopefully everything's well with thee and your family. But you're going to talk about wolf-like behavior, you've got to comprehend that even Rome starts off with Remus and Romulus, um, either depending on which story you believe, being adopted by wolves and raised by wolves, or born of a wolf, right? Which we don't believe happened. That's an extreme, even for evolution, that would be an extreme jump. However, the wolf is there to try and come against the sheep, and so um, when we're talking about wolf-like behavior, um, the Romans believed it was okay for them to do what they did to others. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Because they were doing it to sheep, and as far as they're concerned, sheep deserve to be ate. Wolves have a culture of hunting, and wolves have a culture of being mean and nasty one to another and having a pecking order, and somebody has to be in charge or in control, right? Wolves have this interesting behavior. Now, it's been twisted, right? Because in nature, wolves don't even necessarily do what people say they do. But a lot of the stuff that we get is from other people who have cultures that are connected to being able to fight one against another. Thank you for being part of Community 290. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Forgive me. Grand Rising Deja, how you doing? So wolves have this interesting behavior, right? Sheep have a different type of behavior. Wolves and sheep do not behave together. Matter of fact, it's a wolf's nature to eat a sheep. It is a sheep's nature to either run away from a wolf or to fight a wolf, right? A sheep is naturally apprehensive around wolves, and wolves naturally are attracted to the murder, the killing, and the control of sheep. Natural law. Oh wow, living water. You're right. People even used to say, "Are you raised by wolves?" Right. That's an interesting point, right? How you doing, fitness and fitness roster? So here we are with the wolf. How you doing, Cassandra? Where the wolf is busy telling the sheep what they're supposed to do, and the wolf teaches the sheep. And every time the sheep stands up for themselves, all over the world, right? If the sheep stands up for itself and says we don't want a pipeline, the wolf comes through, puts on the news something different, and tells the sheep, all the sheep, not just the sheep that are in trouble, but all the sheep that just listen to the news, this is what you should be listening to, right? If the wolves show up if the wolves show up in South Africa and they tell you, well, I'm more African than you because I was born in Africa, right? The sheep say, well, that's true. I'm just an African American, even though it's the wolf that taught you what an African American was and told you that what it was starting in the late 70s and early 80s, right? It is the wolf that pops up in Ireland to be able to tell you, hey, how dare you, or says, how dare you be about violence and stuff. But the wolf is right there in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, that still belongs to the wolf, that still belongs to England, preying on the sheep, Ireland, right? But wants to tell us how to make sure that we govern ourselves. It is the wolf that tells you it's so bad what they're doing in Russia, or sorry, in Ukraine, what Russia is doing to Ukraine. But we'll not talk about the fact that right in America, in Hawaii, a place that they, through the Dole Company, got control of as a ravenous wolf and killed off Hawaiian royalty, right? They made it a point to also simultaneously, right now, Mark Zuckerberg, who's telling you about a meta universe, so you don't worry about your natural man and your natural woman and your natural law, at the same time wiping out Hawaiian land as far as making sure he takes ownership so he can make money off of it for generations. And the people that they took their land from and left them with nowhere to go are basically out there struggling and homeless and trying to figure out if they can live somewhere. You said, what if you're neither a sheep or a wolf? Well, I don't believe that a sheep is somebody that I got to be passive, if that's what we're going into. See, I'm a sheep, but a sheep could be a ram, and rams beat the brakes off of wolves. A wolf needs to make sure that he's got all these people to jump him. Rams are in a position where they'll tear a wolf up. I'm not, so I can be a sheep, right? By the way, sheep don't have to be white if even people want to go there, right? Sheep come in many different colors. Matter of fact, there are more sheep that are not white that exist than sheep that are white. You see what I'm saying? So a sheep is not some matter of fact. Sheep are very stubborn because sheep and goats are matter of fact in Israel, in Hebrew culture, Alpha culture, ancient Hebrew culture, a sheep and a lamb are interchangeable. When you hear them talking about a lamb, they could be talking about a baby goat, a kid. See, we don't have kids, we have children, but they have kids, right? So they could actually be talking about a kid. You see? So when I say that I'm a sheep, I don't mean that somebody just tells me whatever to do, right? Sheep can belong to different shepherds. I do believe it's all right to have a shepherd, but a shepherd that has your best interest will make sure you have as much land to be able to be as much of a sheep as you want, will allow you to be a ram. Matter of fact, they know when dealing with sheep that sometimes you're gonna get hit by them. You know, that's part of what happens. So I'm okay. I know people use that as a derogatory term. You sheep will do this and that or whatever, but that's coming from somebody else's culture where the wolf says that we're supposed to take sheep and make them completely passive and submissive. You said, yes, I tell my daycare parents that in my house they have children, not kids. Yeah. Cram, right? I got you, right? I'm with you, Tony Baker. Yeah. So you can go look at some evidence. That's comedic evidence, but it's evidence nonetheless, right? Of what happens. So yeah, so once again, thanks, babe. Once again, the tincture of the month is I am fasting, which is fasting aid. It's chickweed, dandelion, and hibiscus together, right? So you have the problem though has become once again that the wolf has taught you about yourself, about your own culture. In our culture, a shepherd is somebody who comprehends that the sheep can be very stubborn and has to teach the sheep in various ways that it's all right to listen to their voice. So they have a relationship and then become friends with the sheep. The wolf says, no, you must own the sheep. You must denigrate the sheep. You must hurt the sheep. You must hate the sheep. You must make sure you keep them in line because sheep are nothing but food. See the difference? How you doing, T? So we're in a very different situation, a very difficult situation in many different aspects, right? Because we're dealing with wolves, or then even the most dangerous one. Thank you for going there. You beat me to it, but you're on the same path, right? Trauma shaman, which is we get into a position where if we're not careful, the wolves now have started to wear sheep's clothing, and because sheep are not aware, you've lost certain things that you were supposed to have as sheep. Sheep are supposed to be able to smell out a wolf and smell the difference between a wolf and a sheep. You've lost the difference. Matter of fact, sheep should be able to smell the difference between one another. It's part of their behavior. But unfortunately, you as a sheep, you have had certain things taken away from you because your master is a wolf. And now you're to the point to where a wolf can put on sheep's clothing. A wolf can be like the beast. And the wolf can be like no, not the beast, but the second beast, the Antichrist spirit. The wolf can be like the Antichrist spirit, right? It can be like the Antichrist spirit, and it can be something that can actually have the voice of a dragon, but it has the ram's horns. It has the horns of a sheep. We've lost knowledge of self. And a lot of times, like the Bible says, it's not because you don't have knowledge or even have access to it, it's because you reject it. You reject it because wolves reject sheep's culture. You must comprehend that the wolf has a culture. And anybody that's going to keep talking about wolves, are you an alpha? Are you a beta? Are you a sigma? Are you a delta? Right? All the way to omega, right? That's their alphabet. It's different than our alphabet. We would say, are you an aleph, right? Are you, with the source? Are you bait? Are you with the son that comes out the right family? Are you Gamal, right? The camel who humbles themselves? Are you Dalit, an open door? Are you Hey, had the Holy Spirit or have a soul attached to thee, right? All the way to Tav. It is finished, right? It's a different concept, but we're being taught wolf-like behavior. See, in wolf culture, so anybody who's saying that you have to be an alpha male, what they are saying, and thank you, Bounty, bless, appreciate it. Anybody saying you are an alpha male, first of all, doesn't even understand how a wolf works. Because a wolf, really, we don't need to pay attention to the alpha male. You pay attention to the alpha male because he might be the biggest. He might be the strongest, might be the fastest, right? And it's always looking to keep what's his, but it's the alpha female, so to speak, that controls wolf pack behavior. Usually it's going to be an alpha female that tells you how things go. It's like when people talk about the lion is the king of the jungle. Well, two things we have a problem with, because number one, lions aren't in the jungle anymore because you took away lions that were in the jungle. The Barbary lions, they're not even there. But number two, we got an issue because it's the queen. She's the one that hunts and does stuff. Now, the king has a specific position. What is he supposed to do? He is supposed to make sure that everybody is protected. A woman's number one need is to feel secure. Yeah, exactly. Alpha males only exist. Thanks, babe. Alpha males only exist with what? So you said something's wrong with Facebook? Okay, I'm sorry, Sister Nikita. I don't know what's going on. Right. But an alpha male only, well, I probably do, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Right. But an alpha male only knows, or alpha male only exists in captivity, which means that a lot of people, a lot of men, if you want to call them by even the social construct, white men, but there are black men as well. There are Indian men. There are whatever you want to call yourself, right? African American, even if you want to use that label that somebody gave you. There are a lot of men who are trying their best to be alpha male, but you can only be an alpha male in your captivity, which means that the real wolf, the one that you never see that really leads, is actually leading you in captivity. Why would you want to be an alpha male, right? Unless you're okay with being, as you said, trauma, a trauma shaman. Why would you want to be an alpha male unless you're okay with colonization? Because you cannot be an alpha male outside of colonization. You cannot. You cannot, right? You cannot be an alpha male outside of captivity. This is why my wife and I make decisions together, because in our culture, we understand that a woman deserves respect. And she's not in front of us, she's not behind us, she's not over us, she's not underneath us, she is beside us. And we are one. We comprehend in our culture that plurality does not even begin until you get to the number three. If there's two, two are considered to be one. By the way, that even goes to Kemetic culture, which we are mixed into Nubian culture, which we are mixed into. And if you say Nubian, you got to talk about Kush culture, Cushitic culture, right? And if you want to do that, you have to go over and talk about Sri culture and Ashanti culture and Ashanti Sri culture and Mali culture and Ghanaian culture, not just Ghanaian modern Ghana, but even ancient Ghana, which is where Mali comes out of, right? But if you're being taught by a wolf how to be a sheep, what you are being taught to do is to make sure that you are always prey animal, right? How you doing, nature? Thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate you. Somebody else was on too early. I apologize. I missed the name. It said somebody else decided to join up with us. We appreciate you. I missed the name. I tried to scroll back. I can't find it, but we appreciate you, right? And so you're taught to be prey and to accept whatever the wolf tells you, right? I'm gonna be honest, which we should always be, right? How you doing, brother TJ? Shalom up to everybody in Canada. Canada always a big show on these across the platforms, or always has a great showing. Thank you, TJ. So Facebook is working. Appreciate it. Right. I'm not trying to hear. Just being truthful. I'm not really trying to hear the wolf. I mean, I'll agree with truth that the wolf has to say, but I'm not trying to hear the wolf when it comes to them talking about the slapping of Will Smith. When I hear all these people the wolf out here, Hollywood out here, and telling me, man, see, this is dangerous. This is dangerous precedent. How dare Will Smith do this? Will Smith slapped. Look, I don't agree with what Will Smith did, number one. But I'm not trying to hear the wolf tell me what it is that I should listen to regarding Will Smith. See, Will Smith forgot he was a sheep. You know, he's forgotten that a few times. It's not until he needed the Oscar for Ali that then all of a sudden, hey, let's boycott the Oscar. Because before that, going all the way back to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when you had a sheep come to you, a woman come to you, an elder come to you and say, hey, maybe you should make sure that all of us get together. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Oh, in Panama City, Panama. All right. Hello. Is it Lowilia? Thanks for being on. Ransom, how you doing? Right. I'm not trying to hear the wolf tell me about violence, right? And or tell me about this. Number one, Will Smith, he forgot he was a sheep a long time ago when he kicked off the black Aunt Biv because she said you should make sure that the sheep get paid, right? And he said, no, you know what? I'm trying to be in league with the wolf. It wasn't until he was saying there was no such thing as color, and so was his wife, until all of a sudden he didn't get an Oscar for Ali, which, by the way, he probably didn't deserve, according to their standards, he didn't deserve the Oscar for. And look, if you don't pay Oscars, you pay for it. So if you don't pay the right amount of money to the right people, you don't get the Oscar. He knew the game, but then all of a sudden he needed to touch on black people. Then it went all the way away from, you know, black people, this, that, or whatever. Kept playing the movies where he didn't have a black wife. I'm not mad. You know, you can love whoever you want, do whatever. But I'm just saying your culture didn't show that you were anti-wolf. And then all of a sudden you see, which, hey, you saw your wife was upset, this and that, or whatever, and you decided to go ahead and slap a sheep. Look, your wife was feeling a certain way, right? But y'all had already said y'all were wolves. The sheep said something. You knew that this was on national television, and so I'm gonna go ahead and slap this dude and turn my back. Once he turned his back to him, I'm just keeping it 100 with you. You don't turn your back. If you from where I'm from and you slap a man, you ain't gonna turn your back, right? You might get shot. Somebody will try to find you and kill you for slapping another man, right? How you doing, Sister Mary? You know, but he turned his back. He forgot he was a sheep long time ago. He gave you wolf-like predatory behavior. You know, last night, real talk. Like he gave you, or not last night, whenever it was, last Saturday. What, you know, he gave you wolf-like behavior, and then all of a sudden tried to cry sheep tears, and a whole bunch of sheep who've been taught that the wolf has the right to strike somebody else said, oh, they applauded it, right? A lot of them applauded it with nervous applause, right? Applause. That's something that happens in a whole bunch of stuff, right? That happens over in North Korea. You said even 6 degrees of separation, where they taught him to be even more of an average wolf. There you go, right? So he displayed predatory behavior. Exactly. Even if I don't move, my brother may take revenge. You know, hey, you know, real talk, right? So, but I'm just telling you, he forgot he was a sheep long time ago. And Chris Rock, even though he doesn't necessarily live like us, he actually speaks about sheep-like things all the time. He still talks about the sheep experience. He still talks about, hey, we got to stop living in a world that says that we're allowed to go ahead and be hunted the way that we are. Yeah, crying afterwards, right? That was, watch this, like, and I've tried to stay away from this, right? But we'll stay in this just a little bit more. But I just want you to see how the wolf teaches the sheep. I don't even think people comprehend. Like if Will Smith had been, if it wasn't Will Smith, right? If it wasn't Will Smith, if it was a white woman at Target, and it wasn't Chris Rock, if it was a white woman at Target slapped a black man, and then everybody found out about it, and when it was time for her to be interviewed because she was going to get some award at work, and somebody stood up and said, yo, why did you slap that black man? She would have cried. And what would you have called her? You would have called her a Karen. Now, I don't know if we should necessarily be labeling women as Karen, because Karen actually means grace, right? So I don't even know if we should use that, right? But you would have called that woman a Karen. And Will Smith was a Karen. Yeah, and he forgot that he was a sheep, and he slapped a sheep, right? He had a wolf's heart in sheep's clothing, so to speak. I'm not saying, see, I've told y'all, look, if somebody did something like that and did something to my wife, I might not have gone to hit Chris Rock, but I would have seen him afterwards. and said, we're going to work this out. And if he had the wrong behavior, who knows where it goes? I pray that I would have made the right move, right? But you never know until you're in that position. But I'm just trying to tell you, even if it was staged or not staged, it's still wolf-like behavior. And if it's staged, it just means you had two people, Chris Rock and Will Smith, exhibiting wolf-like behavior. Either way, we're still, because it still affected the community. It still affected the world. You said it's interesting that he was asked to leave the building, but he refused and was forced to leave. Yeah, that's what they say. A lot of stuff coming out. I don't know. And what I'm trying to really get to though is like this wolf-like, it's wolves teaching sheep. Right. So I don't want to hear from the wolf. You want to know why I don't want to hear from the wolf? About the fact that, he shouldn't have slapped them? Because the wolf gives you violence all the time. People talking about there's no place for violence. You are the Oscars, based off of Oscar, a Babylonian god, right? Who's all about violence. Don't tell me about the wolf, the sheep. I'm not trying to hear from you, wolf. I'm not trying to hear from you today. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's any place for violence. What are you talking about? Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Conan the Barbarian, Kindergarten Cop, Terminator 3, Terminator Genesis, right? What's the next one? The one with the guy who played Batman, Christian Bale in it. And that's just one actor. Do I need to go to Bruce Willis? All Die Hards, what are there, 4 or 5 of those? 4 or 5 Die Hards? The movie's literally called Die Hard. The Jackal, that's a little underrated one, right? What about I See Dead People, 6 Sense? Like, you're not going to sit there and tell me you're the wolf who teaches this stuff all day, every day, and then wants to get upset, right? And talk about how there's no such thing as violence. You help to put violence out. When the wolf is teaching you, you're in bad shape. When you're the wolf's apprentice and you're trying to be a sheep, so you got to comprehend there's 2 different cultures going on. There's a culture of sheep, there's a culture of wolves. Do you if you study wolves, because that's who they said they study. If you are into anything romanticized or romantic, then you're studying Roman antics, and Romans studied wolves. Once again, they say that Romulus and Remus came from a wolf. Whether you believe they were born from a wolf or they were adopted by wolves, that's what they say. That's what they stake their claim on. They say that their humanity is not even humanity; they're actually wolves. Morbius coming out, right? They're talking about wolves, right? That's what we're dealing with. We can try to make it whatever you want to make it. We're talking about wolf-like behavior. How you doing, Nine? Thanks for being on, right? And when the wolf teaches the sheep, how to act, they're teaching you how to be prey. And wolf-like behavior, do you not know that a wolf is supposed to be able to make sure that they tear a wolf up sometimes and bite them to be able to teach them? Do you know that a wolf is supposed to make sure that they actually go under the whoever has rank under them? They're supposed to actually bite underneath, but not close down, to show that they have the ability to be violent. But at the same time, they're violent only when they're allowed to be violent. Well, the wolf is representative of as a mother to people that are into romantic values, and therefore Eurocentric values. Because remember, an original European is just somebody who belonged to the Roman Empire. So if you say I'm Eurocentric in value, what you're saying is I'm romantic in value. Because you could be Europa, could be at one point it could be North Africa, it could be Kemet, right? Because we are saying that you belong to us. India, Roman, Greco-Roman, really, right? You're dealing with people now, and nowadays people who are saying, that they, think about Stalin, think about Hitler, think about these people. Guess what they did? They said we're trying to be the next Rome. We're trying to even be like Napoleon. Napoleon was trying to be the next emperor. Was he not? Was he not even called emperor? They're telling you these things because they're telling you where it comes from. Now, a lot of people get mad. So what are you trying to say, that all white people are wolves? No, I'm trying to tell you that I know wolf-like behavior though. I know wolf culture. Right? I know what a wolf does. If I see a wolf, I know it's not a sheep. You said they abandon the weak and they have hierarchy like gangs. Okay. The pecking order, clowns slap each other in the circus, stooges. How you doing, Nana? Thanks for being on. Thank you for the love, Casey, earlier. I apologize for not saying so earlier. Right? Like when do you stop? When do you start saying, yeah, I agree with you. Was it AFN? Right? But when do we start going from, and thank you, Kat, for being part of the community. When do we make a decision as a community to be okay with saying that's wolf-like behavior? The reason why people are slow to do it and get on people and try to cancel out black people when they talk about it. And you like, look, I'm not saying Umar Johnson is a perfect example, but why were y'all coming after Umar's credentials? He was an actual professor, right? He's an actual, well, I don't know if he was a professor, excuse me. He actually had a doctorate, and people came rushing at him until finally he showed you his his doctorate. That's wolf-like behavior to your own people. And the only reason why is because he was saying that racism exists. Now, can you say he went far on certain things? Sure. But you don't mind it when Jim Carrey goes far on stuff. Matter of fact, you call that entertainment. You said you have a white wife? I'm sorry. So does that mean that I'm saying that, or I don't comprehend what that has to do with what we're talking about? No offense. Was I saying something against white people? Or was I saying wolf-like behavior? See, even that, right? Because Europa or Eurocentric, right? I don't know if that's what I was saying. I don't know, but Eurocentric doesn't mean white. The Greeks weren't white. Really? Yeah, they weren't white. They weren't African, but they weren't white. A lot of Romans. Look at Justinian, who's the one that put in the Roman Catholic Church. He wasn't what you would consider white today. Look at his pictures. Right? But that gets to a place if we're not careful, because wolf-like behavior says, and somebody that just put it up here, I think it's Anubis, like wolf-like behavior also says that it's about pack mentality. There's some people that are saying wild stuff about all these situations that come out, because even if they know they're wrong, they'd rather make sure that they fit into the pack. You said just triggered by Umar. Hey, I think if Umar spoke some of the words differently, then you would see his points. But I get it, right? As far as Umar would say, if you had a white wife, you were a traitor or whatever. I don't necessarily consider that. I would say, and this is with any husband and wife, by the way, right? If we were, if we were, and we can even go down that road too, SBT. I see what you're saying about the dogs and stuff. We might hit on that depending on how much time we have. We have a shorter time than what we normally do, so I got to be a little more honed in than I would normally be on a Sunday through Friday. And Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Once again, shout out to everybody, right? Yeah, the Greeks weren't white. They're not. The Spartans, matter of fact, if you look at some people that are being honest about stuff, if you look at King Leonidas and the people who would have been part of 300, which was really more like 3,000, which was more like 10,000, which was more like, it was a lot more people than what you think, and a lot more tribes that were working together, because the Greek weren't even a country. Greece was not a country. It was a bunch of different tribes, if you will, or a bunch of different cities, city-states, capitals, whatever, that had their own stuff. And thanks for being part of the community. Sayu, I'm sorry. Did it say you? So but we don't comprehend what's going on, right? If you're taught, like, if you look at this stuff that's coming out now, people are being honest about it now. A lot of people are drawing, like, even if you look at some of the anime or animations that are coming out about it, they're actually drawing them as dark people, because they knew that they did that. It's like they took the same person who was Leonidas and they made him an African Netzer, which you would call a god, but a god is a Germanic deity, so they call them Netzers. Totally different thing. But Dr. Umar Johnson, going back to him, it's wolf-like behavior that got it. All they did was say, see, he's a hater. See, he hates you. See, he hates community. See, he's a reverse racist. And everybody lost their mind. But you got to have the capability. Look, I'll go back to this. So even wolf-like behavior tells us that anybody who says anything about marriage and talks about race in marriage is automatically evil. He didn't even have to say, I think you're a traitor and this and that or whatever, right? Like, he didn't even have to go there. He did. But I'm saying, even if he had not gone there, do you not think that just because he mentioned race, how you doing, Lily, and marriage, you don't think that there would have been something? How you doing, Vanita? Thank you for being part of the community, Yahuwah. I appreciate it. Yahuwah, excuse me. right? But if you're going to talk about relationship, like really what he was saying, now he does. I won't say he doesn't know how to say it. Maybe his mind is somewhere different, right? But if you're going to talk about relationships, let's keep it 100. Any relationship, any marriage you get into is a political statement. So if you're going to get into a marriage, be prepared to marry into somebody's culture. Period. And what I think now he went too far in the way he said it. I would agree, but his whole point is based off of something that's, he has a doctorate in psychology. He's a psychologist, right? And so he's telling you as a psychologist, if you get into marriage with somebody, be prepared to have to defend their culture, period. Or if that person's going to give up their culture, be prepared to be shut off from their family. You can't say that I'm going to be in league with somebody's family and at the same time shut down their culture, right? Now, so that's why, look, let's keep it off race for a second. Let's talk about religiosity, right? If you decide you're going to be somebody who's a black person who says that I'm Avda or Hebrew, and therefore says because of that, that links me to being an Israelite, the culture of the United States of America and around the world, in all honesty, but the culture of the United States of America specifically right now, let's talk about that, will make sure that they put you automatically, they will put you on a list and watch you from the FBI or the CIA automatically. And I don't know, Savraskin, if you're trying to come on, if you're trying to come on the live, let me know in a Q&A or something like that. I don't know if it's a random person just trying to get in or whatever, and let me know what you want to talk about, and we can have you on, because I don't know you personally. But no offense, I just don't know you personally. But we're getting to this position to where we don't want to be honest. Like, watch this. If a you know so if you're going to be my and I have the greatest woman to ever live as my wife, right? So my wife Maya comprehends that her husband at any time around the world is watched by people because he simply says that he believes and knows and can actually trace back his lineage to being Israel. She actually went back with me and we saw the places that we've come from and things like that, right? So when we found out about who we were and we stand on that, that means that she has to recognize that if she's going to be married to me and she's going to support me, which she does, goes above and beyond anything I could even imagine. Her being married to me automatically means that she has decided to make a political stance. You said, so are we supposed to go beyond the mythic wolf bear mother and the 7-star origins? I'm just saying, I'm talking specifically about the wolf sheep relationship. Lupercalia, um, Germanic type wolf stuff, what now people call lint that comes out of Lupercalia. I'm speaking specifically on that. I'm being honest, I don't even know if I can go and link as much as I would need to that a conversation, the 7 stars with the bear mother and things like that. You could talk a little bit about mother, father, deity, I guess, which is something that goes across the board in all these religions. When we use the word religion, we usually use it as a group, right? But all these different things, right? But when you get married, you make a political statement. And by the way, who teaches you about marriage? Is it you? Is it the sheep that teaches the sheep, or is it the wolf that teaches the sheep about marriage? Why is it that your marriages have now jumped up? Well, I think they've came back down. They were at 50 plus percent, somewhere around 52, 53%, something like that, divorce rate, somewhere in there, let's say, right? And it jumped up to 75, 80% during the pandemic. And it doesn't seem those numbers are really coming down. Who's teaching you how to be married? Right? We're still in the land of our captivity. Somebody has us captivated. As long as the wolf, watch this. If you have to go to the wolf for a job, you in bad shape, aren't you? You think it's a great thing? See, well, we stake our claim on humanity based off of how long we have a job and what job we really have. How you doing, Minister Select on you, right? We do all that stuff. You said, am I comparing man versus wolf? Is man the sheep? No, sheep is a culture. So there's a lot of different cultures. Wolves hunt caribou, right? Wolves go against wolves. Wolves do all types of stuff. I'm talking about a culture. And there's a culture that says if you're into romantic things, romanticizing things, which is Roman antics, right? No matter what color you are, if you're into romanticizing things, romantic, then that means that you come from a culture that says that they say that what they started from comes from a wolf. Matter of fact, they're proud of the fact that one wolf killed off another wolf. right? That Romulus killed off Remus. Whether you believe it or you believe it to be, as I do, I believe it to be fable, right? But that's what they say, the foundation of who they are. That's the standard. That's the flag they would wave. Correct? I'm sorry, you said ancient pagans of Rome and Greece adopted Christianity because it's worship of multiple gods. Well, no, Christianity didn't exist until Rome created Christianity. Before there was such thing as Christian, like Yahshua or Moses or Naach or Noah or any of these people. They wouldn't have known what Christianity was. Right? You got to comprehend that it's the Romans. Let's be honest about it. Like, we got to be honest about the bad things that Christianity has done and all this stuff. But let's be honest about it. Like, Rome didn't even use the word Jesus, or the J didn't even exist in the alphabet either. It didn't exist in the alphabet nor the alphabet. But it wasn't until they started saying yeses, they didn't even use it, which was a nickname, half man, half Zeus, demigod. They didn't even start using that until they decided, oh, wow, you know what, if people are willing to die for this, no matter how we're killing them, maybe this is something we can execute. Constantine seems to have had some kind of valid experience. How valid it is, we don't know. But where he looked up into in the sky, he saw a Tav. He knew that the Tav was something that people were willing to die on, and something that they were willing to die on because of the culture it came from. And therefore, he put those letters around the Tav, and then it became something else because then they gave an offering to a false god, so to speak, right? So we're dealing with a different time frame, right? But Christianity Christianity is paganism, and paganism is Christianity in a sense, right? There's other things added to Christianity because you're coming from a Germanic spot. Even when you're talking about God is a Germanic name, right? So when you're talking about those things, but nevertheless, we can agree to disagree on that. But I'm talking about wolf-like behavior. So even when we're talking about Christianity, Christianity is wolf-like behavior. It's predatory. That's why a lot of people don't like to go to church. That's why a lot of black women are going to witchcraft and saying that I'd rather go to witchcraft because black women don't feel secure under Christianity. You're not supposed to be a strong man under Christianity. For example, the wolf will teach you, hey, if somebody hits you on one cheek, give them the other, as if that's what culturally was being done. It was saying that, look, man, if you're around somebody and you're going to help them, and all of a sudden you're trying to help somebody, they might hurt you because hurt people hurt people. And if you're going to try to still help them after that, be prepared that you might have to duck, dodge, do whatever, but be prepared. They might try to slap you again. So you're going to, by helping them again, you're going to offer them the other cheek. It's a different cultural conversation. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of people are coming in there. You said Augustus is so-called the son of God. No, Augustus is the son of Caesar. Somebody had to flip that. Now, Augustus probably helped to make that up, but Augustus is not this pious man or whatever. And Augustus was not even about Christianity. Augustus didn't like Christians, right? Augustus was one of the people that said it was okay to kill Christians. So we're having this weird thing, right? Somebody changed it. We have to be honest about what they changed. Right. And then we're also coming from the culture. I can see that you're coming from a culture, it sounds like you are a Muslim. I'm not serious. A Sunni Shiite, you don't have a sect that you decide to go with, whatever. But it sounds like we're doing a lot of interesting things that maybe not even the Quran agrees with, per se. But I'll leave that alone because I don't know. I don't know what the belief system is. I don't want to assume. Right. But what we're talking about here is sheep and the wolf is teaching the sheep. Right. And wolf-like behavior is one that says that, hey, you're going to bow down no matter what. Right. So my intent is not to exhibit wolf-like behavior with anybody, you know. And if you are Islam, you are my brother, because Ishmael is my brother, right? So I will treat you as such, right? But a lot of people have wolf-like behavior. I thank you, El Tariq, for being on. Appreciate you. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I don't always put my R correctly in that. So you said what religion? Religion, I know what you mean by religion. Religion just means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing over and over again. You could say we're followers of the way. You could, we call ourselves SOC, servants of Christ. We believe in that, in Yashrael and those that can be grafted in, etc. But our denominator of the fraction, our denominator is Yahshua himself. So I'm not sure if we meet the criteria, whatever, the question is, but but we gotta get to this place. You said, and don't you? I'm sorry. Just stay. What you say? I missed the first part. All I see is, and you don't. But what is your framing? How do you describe it? I don't know which part you're talking about. You talking about the whole thing? I missed the first part of what you said. I'm trying to find it. I don't see the first part of what you said. It's not showing up. Ascendant said, but white people demonize it so we don't look inside ourselves. Um, I don't remember what part we're talking about. I'm sorry. There's a lot that I said. I'm trying to catch up with you guys on all the platforms. I guess I missed a lot. So forgive me. I'm trying to catch. You said you don't use a wolf-like approach, so wolf-like behavior is bad. Well, I'm saying in this sense, if a wolf, once again, what is the culture of this conversation? What's the foundation? What's the principle? What's the origin of this conversation? Wolves are out here teaching sheep. So if a wolf is teaching the sheep, is that going to be more conducive to the wolf or to the sheep? That's the conversation. That's the context, the contextual facts that are going to come out of this, or have to come out of the correct context, right? So that's the context of this conversation. You said wolf-like behavior is not bad for the wolf. That's right, because it is in their nature. Now, it was not even originally in their nature. If you believe, even in evolution, it would say it can't be originally in their right. But even in the Bible, if you believe that everything that existed at one point ate plants, then it wasn't even in their nature to hunt anything. But because of sin, something happened to them that causes them to be able to look around and try to hunt others. So, yeah, to a wolf who thinks that their nature is something different than what creation says, or if you're in the evolution that thinks that their nature is something different, they evolved into it because out of a survival tactic, which survival versus actually, there's a difference between survival and thriving. You can survive without thriving, right? Does a wolf thrive? No, a wolf does what it does because it thinks that's what it needs to survive. So we're still having a conversation where, like, yeah, a wolf has a culture. That's what we talked about. Something. A wolf has a culture, the culture of Lupercalia. Before there was Lent, do you know? Like, how many people know why Lent actually exists? Oh, okay, no problem, Ascendant. Right? How many people know why Lent actually exists? I wash it often enough to where it's clean. How often do you actually listen to people before you try to troll? That's what I would ask you. 100% true. It's definitely not 100% of the time that you listen to people, so I don't know how 100% true you can be. Thank you for being on, though. Appreciate your presence. So once again, going back to this, why does Lent even exist? Does anybody, we've talked about it before? Well, because of Catholics, if we want to lay it at their feet, which you could say is a Roman Catholic type thing. But why atonement? Well, there's a day of atonement. So why would we take the Day of Atonement and move it into a 40-day period? No, like, and I'm not trying to come at you. Sorry if that was brash. I'm just trying to say, no, that's not it. Like, why? Can somebody tell me? See what I'm saying? The wolf teaches the sheep to the point to where you think that wolf-like behavior is passable for those that are, children of the Most High. To make it a longer springtime. We're getting closer. Hello, Mr. Papello. Is that the best you got? You said, is it put Yashvai on our mind? No. All right, watch this. Lupercalia, wolf-like behavior. The word looper or looper, it actually means wolf. Shalom, Yah's firstborn, how you doing? Right? It actually means wolf. This is before Lent. Before Lent. People always talk about before this, before that. No, before Lent, there was already what? Before Lent, there was already Lupercalia. Lupercalia was a 40-day period in which you were supposed to act like a wolf. That meant pack behavior. That meant people had sex with different women and men, like they do in Saturnalia. You call that Christmas, right? Same kind of mindset. They changed something to be able to do what they were doing. So Lupercalia, they were already obeying the wolf. You can look this up for yourself, right? They were doing all these different things, having sex, doing this stuff, having these orgies, doing what wolves do. And the wolves, they felt had babies around a certain time of year, so they were trying to have babies around a certain type of year, right? Doing all this stuff. And what happens is, now going back to the actual Christianity piece, let's actually put that where it belongs. Here comes Roman Catholic Church trying to rule everybody. Remember, the first pope is actually the Bishop of Rome. I know they told you it was Peter, but the wolf is teaching you history. Peter had a wife. Peter never referred to himself as a pope. They started trying to tell you when Christ said to Peter, "Upon this rock I will build my assembly," that Peter was the rock. But Yahshua never said Peter was the rock. He said that the rock was his comprehension of the Holy Spirit saying to him that he was the Christ. So upon the rock that is Christ, I will build my, or upon the realization, if you will, upon being born again, is that's the rock that you build the kingdom. They then interjected later on the word church instead of ecclesia or what is hymn or assembly. They started saying church because church is what they were about. Church actually goes back to a word that actually is from that has the attachment to circus. You talking about church? You talking about circus? You talking about circus? You talking about church? How you doing, G Thornton? Thanks for being part of the community today, right? So this is what we're talking about when we talk about Lupercalia. We're talking about a whole thing where once again somebody's taking something. They see that these people are out here wilding out, and the Roman Catholic Church that comes from the Bishop of Rome, and later on you see the Justinian decree in about what the year 500 and something, so or 538. So 400 and something is when Justinian gives the Bishop of Rome power, helps him to get rid of 3 out of the 10 tribes that are coming against him. That's where you have the 10 horns. 3 of them pop out. 1 horn pops out of it that has this pointed head and has eyes and speaks blasphemy. That's supposed to be the Pope, the papacy, right? Where's the head shaped like a tooth or shaped like a horn? It tells you in the Bible. It's telling you what this stuff is going to look like, right? And so, but you see all these things. If you do go there to 538 AC, right? Or some people want to say AD or want to whatever, right? But that AC, and then you look at it, and it kept telling you a time, times, and half a time. If you do the math on that, that comes out to ah I'm forgetting the number. 1,260 years, 1,260 years from the Justinian decree to where they say now the Roman Catholic Church is in place. We're going to be the people that are going to be in place until what? Something happened to him. What happened to him later on? Well, 1798, Napoleon says, go take that Pope, take him down. I don't want him in anymore. Read your Bible, it'll bless you, but you can't read it properly if you don't know the culture, right? The culture is telling you these things. It's telling you specifically years, times, dates, hasn't lied yet, right? That might be a little too far for some. We got a Revelation Revisited series. If you want to go to the YouTube channel, hashtag find Kofi, hashtag FINDKOFI. Go look there, look up Revelation Revisited, look through that. We have a whole thing where we just talk about Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7. All right. And that'll make Revelation or Chazon, or some people say Chasyon or some other stuff, but Chazon, it'll make a whole lot more sense to you. All right. Nevertheless, though, getting back to Lupercalia. So we see over and over again that the Pope is supposed to be the King of Kings because he's blasphemous. He says that he is the most high on earth. So he says he's the King of Kings. Yes, Revelation 2:9, Revelation 3:7, Revelation 3:9, Revelation 7, Revelation 12 talks about Yahshua, right? That's not what I'm focused on right now, but I'm with you, right? I'm with you. But the Pope at that point is supposed to be the King of Kings, right? But you had this problem because he's supposed to be using Christianity, which is a mix of everything, but they wilding out to a point where even the Pope, who by the way would have had children and all this stuff behind the scenes and everybody would have known about it, right? But the Pope would have been like, y'all wilding too much, like these sexual activities, this and that, y'all having all these babies, people don't know who the father is, what's going on? Thank you, Jacob, appreciate it. So he says, what do we have to do? He says, what do we have to do? He says, okay, you know what? Y'all can go ahead and do your Lupercalia thing, but y'all gonna have to give up sex, at least in the manner that you're doing it, at least as openly as you're doing this stuff. The wolf-like behavior has gotten so much out of control that I, the ultimate wolf, have to go ahead and say, we can't do this, at least not publicly the way we're doing it, right? So what do they do? Hashtag find Kofi, hashtag FIND, like you're looking for something in my name, KOFI, right? So he says, look, I'm going to give you Lupercalia. I'm going to give it to you, but you know what? You're going to give up one thing. You're going to give up sex in public. However, he makes a deal. However, he makes a deal, right? However, he makes a deal. And thank you, moderators. Appreciate y'all, right? He makes a deal. What is the deal that he makes? He says, you guys can have Lupercalia and do all this stuff that y'all trying to do, whatever. He says, y'all can have that. He says, I'll give that to you, no problem. Y'all do what y'all do in Lupercalia. He says, or I'm sorry, no. He says, you got to get rid of Lupercalia, but I'll give you one aspect of it. He says, I'll let you have one day where you guys wild out. He says, we'll make a deal, right? That's what Christianity is. Let's make a deal, right? The Most High says, do something different, but you ain't going to do what the Most High says. So let's make a deal. Let's make a deal, right? You can do all this stuff, but you got to do it in one day. After that one day, 40 days of giving up sex. Now, eventually, this has become over time 40 days of giving up one thing, because we would think, especially after this Victorian era that would happen later on, right? We would think we're like, man, even to do any of this stuff is wild. Why would you do this, right? But that's not the culture you come from. Your culture said this was cool. Thank you for the thank you, Thornton. Appreciate it, right? So here we go. We're now. What happens this one day? You already know what this one day is. In Brazil, they call it Carnaval. They still have this in Europe, all over the place, in many European cities, right? They still have this. They do this in India. I forget what they call it in India. But then they also have a day that you call it the same day. All happens on the same day. You call it in America Fat Tuesday. Exactly, Mardi Gras. You call it Fat Tuesday, right? And it's the Tuesday before your 40-day period. And what do people do during that day? It's the same thing. The same people that you're going to see with that ash, that tub, that mark, that cross, that crucifixion symbol on their foreheads, right? That mark on their forehead, the same mark on their forehead that you're going to see, right, later on, is the day before they were out in the street flashing people for beads. For beads. To be on Girls Gone Wild. Isn't that what they used to call it? Do they still have that out? I don't know. Right? They did that. That's where that comes from culturally, because they were wilding out so bad that the Pope said, okay, we'll make a deal. Do whatever you want, but you only got one day. And then you got to go and give up sex, at least sex in that manner you're having it. You got to give it up. So everybody believes that it's okay to do it. Why? Because the Pope said it's all right. Because the Pope's supposedly he's the vicar. He's supposedly supposed to be Yahshua on earth, or what they would call Jesus on earth. That's what he's supposed to be. He gets voted into that position because he sells enough people and does enough deals behind the table that he gets voted in. Right? There's a culture behind it. But if the wolf teaches the sheep don't even know what's going on. If you're a sheep, don't be part of Lent. There's a whole spirit behind that. Why would you want to be part of that spirit? Trying to be a husband to one wife, but you out there talking about Lent. Lent is connected to Fat Tuesday. Yeah, the Pope is their king. Literally, legit, legally, the Pope is a king. I don't know if the Pope is the Antichrist. He's definitely got an Antichrist spirit. The Antichrist, is somebody that has really the Antichrist. If you know what 666 is, if you know how to write out 600 score and 6 in Hebrew, in Paleo Hebrew, right? Modern Hebrew, they added some things to make it more Greco-Roman in their way that they do their number system. But back in the day, we didn't have digits. Like, those digits really come from West Africa, made its way to India, and so now when you write out 1, 2, 3, or whatever, right? Or even the tick marks, right? I tick mark across, or really, I don't even know if it's I, but tick, 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 cross, tick, 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 cross, and stuff like that, or XI, or VX, or all these different things, right? They're different. Well, VX isn't really a thing, right? But you know what I'm saying? LV, all these different things. That's somebody else's culture. That's not how we actually wrote. But if you write it out, it just basically is saying anything that has the spirit of Nero Caesar, of Nero Caesar. Navar Kasar. Navaran Kasar. Sorry, I said it wrong. Right? So when you're talking about Lent, you're not even dealing with that. You're dealing with wolf-like behavior. And you have no clue. You're in Lupercalia. Lupercalia. Right? You're not even talking about Bible. But the sheep are busy trying to do what the wolf tells them. The wolf is trying to do what the sheep tells. I'm sorry, the sheep is trying to do what the wolves tell them. Well, I don't know. I just let my hair grow out of my head. You can see I don't really follow a pattern. I don't know what we're talking about with white hair or whatever, but our hair locks in a certain way. So I don't really have to do much for my hair to lock. Now, if you're talking about people who get it twisted and do all that stuff, you have to talk to somebody who goes through that process. I don't. Maybe Consciously can help you with that. He actually does his hair, like that and puts it on TikTok and all that stuff all the time. Right. But you got to be in a position. You got to be in a position where you recognize that. Right. I don't know which language are you speaking of, Omar. Uh, right. But you got to be in a position. Right. You have to be in a position to deal with these things. Right. Well, even before we get into the word, right, you talking about a cultural thing, a cultural distinction. Like we have to first comprehend what righteous is before we can even talk about unrighteous or evil, even get into evil. Right. Righteous is talking about right legal standing. So if you're not in right legal standing, then you wouldn't be righteous. So sin is not as hard as some people think it is to go into, because sin actually means to miss the mark. You're aiming for a target and you miss. Right. So once again, we're talking about wolves are teaching sheep. If the wolf is your teacher, then you as a sheep are learning how to be prey. Right. If the wolves are teaching sheep, then you are being taught to be prey. If you are allowing, watch this, if you are allowing the wolf to be able to do so. Sin is a choice per se. Sure, some people choose to sin, but you can do something sinful and not even choose to do it. For example, if you're in a marriage, right, and your spouse decides to cheat on you, the Bible says that the reason why the marriage contract is broken and the person can decide to have a divorce or to go back in the contract, right, is because that if one spouse cheats on the other, the Bible says that both have cheated on each other because they're supposed to be one. In Hebrew, right, ancient Hebrew, right, Paleo Hebrew, the original, the origin, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, which is origin. So in the original concept, plurality doesn't start until you get to number three. We talked about that again earlier today, right? So two are one. We don't say we until you get to more than two. You got to have two is considered to be one and two. So in our culture, 1 + 1 is one. 1 + 1 is the same thing as 1 times 1, because two is singular, three is plural. It's a cultural difference, right? So, like, if you're talking about sin, right, somebody could cheat, but if that person cheats and you're supposed to be one with them, that means you cheated. That's why it's so nasty to us in our DNA memory and everything. That's why it's so disgusting to us, and it's something we really have to be able to get over. Because if you slept with somebody, I slept with somebody, especially now if you got somebody that not only did it once but has been doing it for years and sleeping with both people. Well, why now I'm sleeping with this person, right? Because the DNA of the person is also in me, right? It's a different concept. So when we're talking about evil, all this stuff, first we got to figure out what righteousness is. Righteous is to be in right legal standing. So, for example, there's a lot of people who grew up on Christmas. Christmas is Saturnalia, right? Santa Claus is based off of a whole bunch of different saints from all over the world that had Klaus in their name somewhere, and they tried to put the best parts of them together and then manipulate them besides the story, right? Santa Claus, the reason why he flies in a sleigh over you is because Odin used to fly over people. And the reason why you were supposed to make sure that you got in your house and you made sure that you were in there and nobody could see and you went to sleep was because nobody wanted to be awake. That was the Norse theology. Nobody wanted to be awake when Odin was flying around, because Odin was not a great guy. Odin was scary. If you see, we talked about this before a long time ago, but if you remember, if you're a Futurama fan, I'm not really a Futurama person anymore. It's kind of corny to me. It still was when I was watching it, but I had been so involved with it that when it came back, I watched all the episodes. But it's actually based off of a very Greek play. I think it's a Greek tragedy, but it's based off of a Greek play. And if you remember in Futurama, they tell the truth about that. They talk about Santa Claus is evil. Santa Claus is not a great person in Futurama. He's actually an evil person. But that's going back to who Odin actually initially was. When Odin showed up to town, you don't want to be about it. It's a show called Futurama. Wow. You might be. I don't know if you're my age or not. If you're asking that because you're younger than me, I might be getting. I mean, I'm 39 years old. Seems like we might be around the same age, but I can't tell by pictures. I'm terrible at that, right? But you gotta. But you see what I'm saying? So like you're talking about Yule log. Yule log is part of Norse theology. It's the wolf teaching the sheep. They told you that Christ was born in December, even though nothing in the Bible, even the stuff that gives us a hint in the Bible, really points more so to he got to be born around September, October, period. Right? And by the way, couldn't have been out, the sheep wouldn't have been out, the shepherds wouldn't have been out because you have torrential downpour. It's winter in Israel at that time, and still is. Right? So you're when we're talking about this stuff, so somebody could have been raised in Christmas, having Christmas celebration, and been in sin without even knowing they were in sin. Now, the Most High, praise Yah, He is the judge. Hallelujah, hallelujah, right? He's the judge. And only He can judge the heart. The word heart in Hebrew also means passion, lab. So only He, right? I think now they say lav in modern Hebrew, but lab, lamed bit, right? But only He is the judge. How you doing, Rubber Band Man? Thanks for being part of the community, right? Phantasmata, it means slightly something to me, but I'll be honest, I haven't studied it. I know a tiny, tiny bit about it, so I don't know enough to be able to make conversation about it, at least at this moment in time, right? So when you're dealing with this stuff, you've got to be in a position. Yes, Yahweh, or some people try to say Yahweh or Yahweh or Yahweh, which would be Yahweh, which would be Yahweh or Yahweh, Yahweh, right? But a lot of people don't know how to pronounce the stuff. You know, like his name is a mighty rushing wind, so it really be like Yahweh, right? That's actually his name. That's a mighty rushing wind. It sounds like that when it's said really fast and it zips by you, right? It's cultural, right? Nevertheless, though, you have people who worship this. If you have people who are in the Easter, Ishtar, right? What is Ishtar? What is Easter? Ishtar. It's the worship of Ishtar. Ishtar was the original wife of Cush, and Cush, son of of Ham. Ham, his name Ham. Ham, it means hot, right? The people that could be in the hot, in the heat. That's who Ham is, right? So Ham, and he had a son. His first son is Cush, right? And Cush actually ends up marrying this woman, right? And her name is Samaras, right? Or we call her now Ishtar. And Ishtar, she said that she was sitting in the moon because everybody knew this was the original prophecy. This is why you have all this mother, father, God principle stuff on all these places. Everybody knew what it said in Genesis 3, that the father was going to get with this woman, right? And the woman was going to have a son. So she said she was the woman that came from the moon in an egg. That's what she announced to people. And people worshiped her as a goddess. She was with Cush. Her husband Cush loses the battle that he's trying to go against the Most High in. So guess what happens? All right. Now she doesn't go with him, but she actually gets with Nimrod, her own son. Cush and her have a son named Nimrod. Nimrod ends up being this person you see in your Bible, because a lot of us don't read outside of 66 books. So we just catch up with Nimrod where he's out here, shooting people or whatever. And he's this hunter and all this stuff, but he became a great ruler, right? And Nimrod actually gets killed by his own family, right? Well, a lot of them at the time would have been family, but Sham, who we come from, Shemitic people, Shem and others, they get together and they say Nimrod's getting out of control, and they kill Nimrod. And they put pieces of his body all over the place. Say, hey, we are not going back to a time the Most High just finished doing the flood. We're not getting wiped out again by nothing, right? And we ain't gonna allow Nimrod to be about this business of being against the Most High, right? That's what they do. So they kill him. She therefore says that, but she messing around, continuing to mess around, and people continue on be under her and stuff. She messes around with somebody else, gets pregnant again, and when she gets pregnant, she says, "Oh, this baby right here is actually coming from Nimrod." But they're like, "Nimrod's dead." What does she do? She says, "It's the sun's rays. It's the sun's rays that impregnated me." That's what she said. And so, since the sun rays impregnated her, the son that was coming, that was the promised Messiah. Right? And so that son's name, his name is Tammuz, but that son dies, I think, either in early childhood or dies maybe at the most like around his pubescent age, right? Or around a pubescent age. But but he dies in a boar accident. He's fighting, he's hunting a boar, or either walking around, but it seemed like he was hunting, and a boar was able to get to him and gore him, and he died. Right? And so therefore the promised son died for many, but then he died. And so people ought to say the sun is up there. So that's where you get this sun moon worship stuff from. And Ishtar, the woman we talked about that gave birth to her own son with Cush, then had sex with her own son, then her son died, and then she got pregnant by somebody else and said that that son impregnated her from the son. That's where you get Ishtar from. That's what that woman is, Ishtar. That's why you have a bunny. Ishtar in some cultures is actually carved out and sculpted as a rabbit that has a whole bunch of teats, right? Because rabbits are supposed to be very fertile, which we know that they are, and they give birth to a huge, I don't know what you call the bundle of rabbits that comes out, but they give whatever their litter is, they give birth to a lot of babies, and they can keep giving birth over and over and over again in a short amount of time, right? And if they don't have any natural predators, they are able to continue to flow, right? So she's a fertility goddess. That's what Ishtar has become. And so when you get to Easter, that's where Ishtar comes from, because Easter is what? Here's the deal. What are we supposed to do? Why do we have communion when we have it? Or I'm sorry, we call it communion. Why do we have Pasach or Passover when we have it? We have Passover when we have it. Why? Because when we look up at the moon, hear what I'm saying? When we look up at the moon starts the new month, it starts the new year. So we know that yesterday we started saying Shana Tav. Some people say Shana Tava, but Shana Tav. And you look up at the moon and you saw, okay, the moon's in place. Cool. Beginning of the year, right? Now all of a sudden, what happens is Ishtar is the new moon. So what do? Right? They say that we worship the moon, but we worship it in a different way in a different place. So Easter is always a certain amount of time, or I'm sorry, Easter is always different than Passover, because they're always going to make it on what? A Sunday. Why? Because the moon, the day of the moon, Ishtar, has to match up with the day of the sun. And then you, as the children of the sun and the moon, you are the prophecy. Or you just put Christ in there and you say he's the prophecy. You call him Jesus, half man, half Zeus, a demigod, somebody that comes out of you as humanity, but somebody that's into the sun moon thing. That's exactly what they put out there. Now, we don't know all that. Why? Because the wolves teach the sheep. So you in the Lupercalia, right? Wolf behavior. You're in the Ishtar, fertility goddess, right? So think about this. Fat Tuesday happens. Carnival happens. All over the world. We think of it only happening in two places. All over the planet, they worship this stuff. Then you have 40 days of Lent, which is supposedly supposed to be, hey, stop having sex as much. And now we just say, hey, take one thing that you have a lust issue with. But back then it was, hey, y'all lusting too much after your bodies, like break off of that. You got one day to get rowdy, to get it on, to do all that stuff. Now 40 days you gonna need to wipe clean of that one thing that you did. And then at the end of that, we'll put Ishtar, which is talking about fertility goddess, right behind it, talking about sun worship on Sunday, right behind it, and we're going to say that Jesus, half man, half Zeus, demigod, is the reason for the season. When the wolf teaches the sheep, you have a problem. And I'm not telling you anything that I made up. I'm not telling you anything that you can't research. I'm not telling you anything that you can't Google. I'm not telling you anything you can't go to a library. I'm not telling you not to use that Dewey Decimal System, because that's really all Google is anyways, a Dewey Decimal System. For those who are going to argue, well, Google, you think you learned all this stuff on Google? Fine, go to a library, use a Dewey Decimal System. You're using the same thing. You're just more limited than what the average person is. And you don't know how to use Google to be able to get past certain things. So therefore you're trying to say, you're trying to belittle it, right? Either way, however you want to go about it, because I knew this before there was a such thing as Google, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is this stuff has been here. But when the wolves, thank you again, Jacob, when the wolves teach the sheep, we got a problem. When the wolves teach the sheep, we got a problem. Thanks for being part of the community, Takoi. Thank you for being part of the community, Takoi. All right. I don't know what I did there. My tongue was on negative 2,000 right there. So the son got her pregnant. Well, you could say the son/son. Yeah, I can see where people try to put all that right in there. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be well. In this case, let's leave that alone. You know me, I'm micro. Let's leave that alone. I think that's a great interpretation, right? Yeah. No, no, no. Summarize. started off as Nimrod's mother, and then became Nimrod's wife because they slept together. And Nimrod had power over a whole bunch of stuff. Remember, he was basically making a power play to be your original Napoleon, your original Hitler, your original Stalin, your original whoever you want to put in there, right? Trying to become your Mansa Musa, right? He was part of the building of the uh of the tower, right? The Tower of Babel. Yeah, yeah, I know, right? They act like there are libraries on Google. I always have to say that because somebody will be on here saying some wild stuff. Oh, well, you think Google is this? You get everything from Google. See, that shows that you don't know anything. And those are people that basically say that they know more than me, but they spent, 100,000 plus to be able to go to some school or university that they still have to pay off debt from. Meanwhile, I'm not a debt slave. Who's doing better in that way, so to speak. I don't even want to say who's doing better. I think who was in the righteousness more. And thank you for the compliment. Freedom lives here. Appreciate it. Terrence said, I gained the core majority of my knowledge in the library before Google existed. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you got to know how to research, you know. But really, Google is just research. If you don't know how to research, you won't be able to research whether it's in a library or Google, just like people are trying to research the Bible, so to speak. But a lot of people don't even know what I'm speaking of. You hear what I'm saying? A lot of people have no clue what I'm talking about. Don't even know where to start. Thank you, Miko. Appreciate it. Don't even have a clue as to where would they even start to get to where I'm talking about, but would argue about it because they never read it in a book. That's why I'm a Jelly Griot. Griot in West Africa, we are supposed to ensure that we know what's written, the dance, the art, the music, the language, and even the spoken stories, and be able to pass it down, right? Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, poet. We have on our YouTube channel, hashtag find Kofi, hashtag FINDKOFI. If you go look on there, so hashtag find, like you're looking for something, and then my name up here, Kofi. If you go look on there, you'll be able to find what's going on with us there. And we have one of our series on there. It's called Revelation Revisited, one of our playlists. So if you go on there and listen to that, and we have a whole thing just talking about Hazon or apocalypse or revelation. Revelation coming from the mindset once again properly that to revel in something is to rejoice. So to revel in something is to rejoice. So Tion, I learned this last night. I was thinking that Tion, we pronounce it wrong, but en français, Tion is chiant. So it's actually a French type word, you know, revel, revelation, something like that. I'm probably not pronouncing it correct, but it's actually a French. It's got more of an ancient French type value to it, going back to a Latin type value to it, going back to a Greek type value to it, coming from obviously a Ofori or Hebrew perspective. Yep, they do teach you how to study, Desiree. I was one of them, so I definitely know that. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's. I was actually happy with that. He said his mother told him that he was going to become a Creole, so his mother bestowed that upon him. So there you go. Right. I had somebody else bestow that upon me. I didn't consider myself to be a griot. Somebody told me I was. When we really started getting into this journey, and we started actually picking up on stuff, and we were actually having we still had very few people that knew about us on social media. But when we, this is several channels ago now because they keep taking the stuff down. But we had a lot of people who were who came in and were about what we were about and stuff, and looked for us on different platforms and stuff. And so when we started getting up there for the first time and went back home, um, you know, that was something that somebody bestowed upon me. Ever since then, I've kept it. Griot, once again, is somebody who's supposed to be a historian in a certain sense. We just are historians in a different way. Yeah, so once again, if you go to the YouTube channel, if you want more information on this, if you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube right now or the podcast, well, if you're on YouTube or if you look at the podcast episodes we have, or if you're on Facebook, we have the information in the in the description already. If you're on TikTok, all you got to do is just go to our page, and you can get a little bit more information in the bio about us. But then if you look where it says website, click on that. There's a link tree my wife set up. When you click on that link tree, all you have to do is click on whatever place you want to go. So if you want to go to YouTube and look, you can feel free to do that. You said, and 13 times 28 is 364 days. Yeah, well, we don't do 28. That's more Gregorian whatever. Matter of fact, the whole 28-day thing wasn't even an original thing for. I don't even know if it was original for any culture. The only reason there's 28 days in February is because that the Romans, because remember the Romans only had 10 months. That's why if you go backwards, December Dec 10, and then go backwards, November 9, Oct 8, right? Sept 7. When you get to August, is because Augustus Caesar changed that month to himself, and when you get to July, that's because Augustus Caesar changed that for his father, July, to make it Julius, July. So once again, you're talking about a difference of culture, right? But the 28 days thing was more so, kind of, sort of. The 28-day thing is not necessarily 100% always 28 days. Like if you look at the Hebrew calendar, so we're talking about cultural value, right? Like if you look at the Hebrew calendar, sometimes it can be as little as 353 days. Sometimes it can be as much as 385 days. It's difficult, right? But we've been taught by the wolf. So like the wolf says, my calendar is what it is. But remember, the calendar you use now is going off of that same thing. There were only 10 months. Calendar used to get out of whack. People like Julius Caesar and other would be appointed in the Senate to make sure that they kept up with the calendar, to update it every once in a while and do whatever they felt like doing, really, to update it. They didn't have to update it according to a specific formula. So when you get to that point, understand that they went to Kemet. Julius Caesar went to Kemet. He saw that in Kemet, they basically had 30 days for 12 months. Each month was 30 days, and they had 12 months. And then basically they had 5 extra days that they would place in there. And every once in a while, they would do something extra to make sure that they corrected it. They didn't necessarily do a leap year, but they did something extra every once in a while to make sure that the things got corrected. Well, Julius Caesar saw that. He said, okay, I'm going to take this calendar and make it ours. Problem, though, they had added on these 2 months, right? January and February, which really were at the end, but now we put them at the beginning. And January, and basically he wanted to make all months 30, but problem, well, we still got 5 extra days. How do we do that? Well, we got to just choose where we're going to do it. So it's like a political thing. We like this month because of this God, and this month because of this God, and this month, right? But they didn't like February. February was a bad luck month, right, for them. So they said, okay, let's make February only 28 days. And then they dispersed everything the way they did. But every once in a while, we needed something extra, like the Egyptians do. How do we do that? Well, maybe we can just make an extra day, and you call it a leap year. But think about it, it doesn't really work that well, because you've even seen it in your lifetime, right? I'm an 80s baby, but I can tell you in my lifetime, winter used to be a lot different as far as where it started to where it starts now. Like winter don't really start sometimes until like January. If I go back to like East Coast, DMV area, when I went to high school, that's where I went to high school at. DMV area, Alexandria, Virginia, right? DMV area, DC, DMV area, PG County, all that stuff over there. I remember like when it started hitting November, December, you were just hoping and praying for because we weak over there as far as snow. We don't like snow at all. So if there was going to be sleet, if it looked like there might be freezing rain, we were excited because no school, right? At least 2 hour delay, this and that or whatever. We learned how to watch the news like our parents did. We were like, oh, okay, they say it's sleet. Ooh, it's sleet like this, and the temperature this. We probably gonna get out of school, right? But if you notice, it keeps getting pushed back further and further. Where not people call it global warming, and there is, in a sense, of global warming going on, right? But people don't take into account that it seems like these seasons are shifting around. It seems like summer's coming later, right? Like we're growing food now and stuff, but the frost, we had to wait for the last frost of the year. The last frost of the year keeps getting later and later and later, you know? So, you have to recognize it depends on culturally when you're going through this stuff. But nevertheless, right? Like it's all these different things are in a different place, right? Um, Oh, okay. Sorry, Pastor Will. I'm trying to be reached by a few different people, and I know why you're probably trying to reach, and I apologize. That's why, and with a lot of stuff going on, that's why I said, I told you it was going to be what it was going to be, but I do comprehend. It's difficult for me signal wise sometimes, and we'll try to get it on the right path. I'll try to see if I can reach out to you after the line. Um, but yeah, when you see all these different things, and you can say they're controlling the weather, they're starting to learn that, but even in general, right? Like stuff has been getting later and later and later. By the way, that's how it's worked historically. Just because it was winter somewhere didn't mean it was always cold that place. We think when the Romans fought in winter, we just go, oh, okay, it was exactly like what it is now. But look at the times that they fought, right? Nevertheless, the main objective is for us to remember that what? The wolf is teaching the sheep. Thank you, user 642. Right? The wolf are teaching the sheep. And if the wolf continues to teach us, then we're going off of something different. From the DMV. All right, what's up, man? What's up, fam? How you doing? All right. So DMV, I used to call it the land of Joan. The land of Joan out there. Right? We don't do the dozens over there. We Joan over there. Now everybody said that they Joan, but back then it was there, right? But if you comprehend these things, right? Yeah, Valentine's Day, pagan too. Matter of fact, there's no mention, right? Saint Valentine's Day, even is what it's called. What about Saint Patrick's Day? I know we got some Irish people on here, but I'm just telling you, they did the same thing with Saint Patrick that they said with with Saint Valentine, that they did with Santa Claus or Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas. It's the same. It's the same thing. The wolf is out here teaching the sheep, right? If the wolf is teaching the sheep, the wolf teaches you how to be prey. The wolf is a predatory animal, is it not? And if you notice in all this, I've been very careful to do something because I know that if I had mentioned it, I mentioned it a couple times because people try to go there, but for real, if you notice, I've been very careful to not mention something, but so much. What have I not mentioned that much? Right? I have not mentioned white because the wolf is not always attached to white. Right? White is a social construct. Now, are there people that are Eurocentric? But Eurocentric doesn't mean white either. You got what? See, can I say this? Let's say, and I don't believe this. I don't agree with this. We don't teach this at all, right? But let us make this very clear. Yasser. All right, are you ready? Let us make this very clear. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that white means bad. I don't believe that to be the case. Matter of fact, I don't think we know what the color white is because we forget that the color white is not a color. If you see my shirt is actually my undershirt, if you will, is actually off white, right? It has color to it. But this shirt right here is white, but it's white because you can see through it. That's actually what white used to mean before somebody made it a color, right? But let's just say white means bad. Doesn't mean that at all, right? But just for the sake of argument, once again, y'all heard me on here, right? I didn't say it's bad. I said, right? I said, let's just for the sake of argument, because a lot of people like to go there, including some white people like to go there. I'm not going there. But let's just say for the sake of argument that it has white means bad. Let's say you're saying that. All right. Comprehend. I don't even know if I can really do this with it, right? Because I don't believe it. But let's just say white means bad, right? There are people outside of whites that still do evil, correct? Or are not righteous. Okay. And by the way, the people who you consider to be white and who have, you would say, take on other people's culture, they would not have been considered to be white at a certain time. You said white is a color, though. You use it in Photoshop often. Yeah, because somebody told you that's what the color white is. But when you use it in Photoshop, what are you doing? You're actually taking away color. If I had a white crayon and I use it on a if I have white chalk and I use it on a black board, do you know what I'm doing? I'm using the color white to block out black. Maybe that's a bad example. I don't like that example. How about this? If I'm getting ready to use white out, what am I doing? I'm taking away the ink, or at least I'm covering up the ink so that you can't see the color. White is just simply the absence of color, and it's basically like opaque. It's something you can see through. That's what it used to mean. When somebody tried to tell you white man's burden was a thing, manifest destiny, etc. That's when it became something it wasn't, right? So, but you got to comprehend when I say European existed before white. Matter of fact, Europa didn't exist until Rome said. A matter of fact, you know that Europe wasn't even a continent until recently. Somebody had to teach you that because a continent, by definition, is a large landmass completely surrounded by water. They've now changed the definition recently. But a continent used to just mean it's a large landmass. A certain landmass has to be a certain size that is completely surrounded by water. Right? Somebody had to make up Europe for you to believe it. Do you not think? Right? And here's what I'm ultimately getting to. and we gotta get ready to take our leave. I'm sorry to even leave it on this note, right? But we got to get ready for a Shabbat Shalom podcast for those, or service for those of you who want to come on the podcast. We do that via podcast only, right? So if you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, if you're on the podcast, you can just simply come back. But if you're on YouTube, Facebook, just simply look in the description box for the information for the podcast. If you're on TikTok, look in the bio for the podcast. You'll be able to find it. You have to have the Podbean app, Podbean app, Podbean, right? But let's just do this. There are people who would tell you that the highest amount of people in the world that you consider by the social construct is white, right, are 10%. There are people that would tell you that goes as low as only 5% of the world would be by the social construct of what you call white. Whatever it is, somewhere in between. All right. How do a small group of people rule the world like that? If that's who you think rules the world, do you think that they rule it by themselves? A lot of people don't want to hear that. But do you think that these people rule this world by themselves? Right? If 5 out of 100, let's say 10 out of 100 are dying, right? 1 out of every 10 people in this world are white. You think that they rule the other 9 out of 10 without help? Not just even spiritual. Ashkenazi, Khazarian, okay, that's fine either way, right? However you want to put it, that's even less people. So either way, the point is still valid, right? Like, do you think they rule the world by themselves? Not just spiritually. Let's even though I believe in what you're saying, I'm talking about, let's not just make it so let's take the spiritual and make it, instead of so mystical we can't comprehend it, let's bring it back down to practicality. Let's make it practical. Right. And by the way, thank you, babe. Yeah, I have not equated the wolf to white. That's why I said European does not mean white. That's why I said that you're dealing with the spirit as well. All that. And anybody who says different, either you've never been with us or you haven't listened to what I've talked about today, right? I comprehend we had a lot of people come on today, right? But comprehend, I'm not saying wolf-like behavior means white behavior, right? There's a difference. You can tell what a wolf is, and not every white person exhibits wolf behavior. All right, we made it a point to say, if you're going to try to say something different and lie, comprehend that you will be the person that will end up getting in trouble for lying, right? Because we put that out over and over again, and we have it on multiple platforms, right? We got 4 different things going live at the same time. All right, hear what I'm saying, right? Hear what I'm saying. All right, as we get ready to take our leave, I want to leave on this. Even if you believe, even if you're somebody believe, we don't believe, but even if you're somebody who wants to say all white people got to be bad, we don't believe that. Even if you're somebody that says that, you can't have 5 to 10% of the planet. Let's say, well, I'm sorry, let's go to the high end. You can't have 10%, and that's actually too high according to almost everybody's census, right? But you can't have 10% or less of the planet ruling everybody else unless they have help from the oppressed. Did y'all catch that? And thank you for the love. I'm sorry, I'm not catching all the names right now. But you can't have 10% or less of the planet oppress the other 90% unless some people out of the 90% are okay with helping those people. You cannot. Whether it's because you are a slave in your mindset, whether it's because you are a debt slave, right? But the wolf, or some of the people that are wolves, do a study. I'm not even sure how many, right? I think it's Boulee, but do a study on Boule and figure out in Masonic family, so to speak, figure out who the Boule are and start doing some research on some of the most famous people who are Boule, or their fathers and mothers might have been Boule, and you don't even know, right? Boule are people who are supposed to be Masons, but they are supposed to be people that attack their own people. You can't keep this up. And and this happens, by the way, even if you're not into Boule. Think about this. You got a police officer, right? This is why it's always interesting to me when somebody tries to hit this weird argument where they be like, well, they'll be like, well, white. You're talking about police officers and them killing black people. What about when black officers kill white police officers? You think in my look, I'm not trying to say that all police officers are bad either, but hear what I'm saying. Where I come from, if you're a white person in a police uniform or a black person in a police uniform, we don't like you either way. We don't with the popo, period. The police, period. That's where I come from. Doesn't matter if you're white or black. You hear what I'm saying? But look at but look at Boulay, right? It's showing you that it don't matter the wolf like mentality, and people do this at work, right? People will be, well, you know what, I would help out my people. Maybe I would bring this before this congressman. Maybe I would bring this before the judge. Maybe I would take this up and so, but you know what, man, I got to feed my family and I'm not trying to lose my job, right? I'm not sure how to spell it. I think it's Boulee or something like that. I'm probably wrong, but just look up Black Boule and you'll probably find it, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is this: is that, like, before we do this whole thing of everybody's evil just because they don't look like us, start thinking bigger than that, because that's how you get caught up, right? And those police officers, they come from slave patrolmen, but what? Guess what? The English police officers, they come from something different, right? you know, and African police officers, they kind of sort of come from the same thing, but they kind of sort of don't. That's how you can get some Idi Amin stuff happening. Like, how does Idi Amin exist, right? You see what I'm saying? How does Papa Doc and Baby Doc exist? How does somebody kill off Sankofa? Sorry to hear that, Wendy. Right? But I'm just trying to tell you, this thing is deeper than just you look like me, you don't look like me. Wolf-like behavior is not only based off of your physical appearance, right? Remember, Willie Lynch even you that in order for black people to be mistreated by white people, that he said you had to never miss an opportunity to teach your family about racism. So if you were a racist, if you were a slave master or a slave owner, because a slave master is different than a slave owner, but if you were a slave owner, then you had to become a slave master. Master means teacher. So if you owned property, because you didn't consider you to be a person, and you came home from a long day of doing whatever, because you weren't really working, but whatever your long day of having fun or probably cheating or doing whatever, and you came back home, and let's say your child was at the dinner table, because we used to eat together at dinner tables back in the day, right? So let's say you were eating at the dinner table, and you're eating, and baby girl says, you know what? Oh, no, no, baby boy says, you know what, Dad, N-word Jim. N-word Jim has really been doing some great stuff today. And then baby girl says, you know what? Yeah, N-word Jim, he was so nice to me today. And mom says, you know what? N-word Jim has been doing some great stuff. Honey, what do you think? Maybe we should go ahead and let N-word Jim have some time off, or maybe he doesn't have to work all day every day. Maybe he can have 2 weeks of where he gets to wake up 3 hours late. I mean, maybe one of those days we can have him actually sit at the table. And then guess what? The daddy's job was supposed to be. Daddy was supposed to step up and say, all right, y'all, I know what you're trying to do. And I love the fact that you would love N-word Jim. But remember, N-word Jim is a N-word. And he's not of any value. And he's not supposed to make sure that he does anything. Right? And he said, therefore, and if you bring him up to me again at the table, I promise you that it's not going to work out for you. Do not mention Edward Jim as a human being ever getting at this table. That was he was supposed to do. Like, you were never supposed to miss an opportunity to continue this rhetoric that says that white was on top and black was on the bottom. You were supposed to have that taught. He said your overseers were supposed to be taught that. Your employees were supposed to be taught that. And of course, black people as well. So even people that are out here saying wild stuff, they don't even know where the wild stuff came from. It's because that they were supposed to be taught that they were less human. See, Irish people who were brought over as indentured servants mostly, they sometimes get treated as slaves, but they fought with us. But guess what they did? They said there's too many times that these Irish people and black people have fought together. What can we do? Let's make these Irish people white now. Hey, Irish man, you get to be white. Seen directly from Huckleberry Finn, right? And we're Jim, right? Right? You, hey, white Irish people, you can go ahead and be white. And then once you finish being white, if you did your indentured servitude, sometimes if you could have just came over, been an indentured servant, and then we'll give you land and we'll pay you back for your indentured servitude. It was a whole different thing, right? But they had to teach black people and Irish people who have a whole history, even since that and before then, of fighting together against the evil English British Empire. The word British even means brutish. That's what the Romans called the British, right? So against this brutish empire, right? We fought against them together, Irish and black. Matter of fact, look up, I talk about this all the time. Look up the Isle, Isle or island of Montserrat, Montserrat, the island of Montserrat, the Isle of Montserrat. And you will see that it is a whole island of black and Irish people mixed together. And nobody talks about it. But that's your history too. That's your story too. And that's why a lot of Irish people till this day are still fighting for places like Nigeria and other places. And we don't even know. We don't even know. Right? Well, don't be ashamed. Well, if you want to be ashamed of being white, so to speak, white doesn't exist. So be ashamed of being something that doesn't exist, sure. But why not make sure you figure out what your culture actually is? Or if you want to take on another culture, figure out what that culture actually is. Right? That's all I'm saying, right? So if the wolves keep teaching the sheep, we're in trouble. Right? I want you to recognize that if we're going to keep allowing the wolves to teach the sheep, we're in trouble. I believe Tamara has it on here, Minister Tamara, yeah, on here has it, but it's spelled out Montserrat. I just messed it up, something like that. Isle of Montserrat, if you could find it, right? But look it up. Look at some videos. I used to have some videos that were on one of the channels we had up before, two of the channels we had up before, and then they, took down our stuff. But go look it up. It's on YouTube, and you'll see some stuff that will blow your mind. People singing and talking with Irish accents, and then they start cooking some food and having some dances that are tribal. And you're like, how in the world are these same people? Because it's people that came together, people that fought together, people that lived together. Irish people died for black folk in Mexico. Knew they were going to die. Could have left and said, no, we'll go ahead and die with you because it's only right. I'm telling you, like, we don't know because we're so busy fighting against each other that you don't know where the fight came from. Somebody's pulling the strings on you. And that's why we need to come out of this system. Come out of a system. Come out of her. Come out of a system that says that you're supposed to be prey, a sheep, and be a wolf. That being said, thank you guys for being on. I'm almost, we're getting up closer to the numbers that we used to have. We're still not all the way up. We used to have it to where at one point we might have 1,000 people on at one time. We're kind of starting to get to those numbers, but I have to be obedient. We got to get ready for the podcast. We got to get ready for Shabbat Shalom service. So thank you all so much. If you want more information about the podcast, once again, if you're on TikTok, just simply go onto to the page, look in the description box. You got to have the Podbean at Podbean, but look up the Kofi Ofori podcast, or just go to the link tree. And right where it says website, click on Linktree. You'll be able to find that out. For more things that you want, whatever, we're on every rising, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. Thank you, Shlonda. We're on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. And we have classes that we do outside of this where we can actually get into some things I'm not allowed to talk about on these platforms. And we talk about marriage a lot. We do life coaching, marital coaching. We have different people that can talk to you as well. We're growing as a community. We're all over the place. Once again, I'm going to end after this. And once again, all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. Please study this word so that you can execute it as well. Don't just be a hearer of it, do it as well. All praise to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, in the tincture, which is a natural medicine. The tincture that is for you guys for this month, the main tincture, she has a whole bunch of them, but the tincture of the month, if you want to go for that one, is I Am Fasting, to help you to prepare for fasting, or even if you are in the midst of fasting, it's a fasting aid. And also, please get ready. Passover right around the corner. Please, ma'am, please, sir. Also, too, if you're April 16th, we're looking at everybody meeting together. If you're in between Virginia and Georgia, in that region, we're going to try and converge. We are going to converge upon South Carolina. We're going to be there April 14th through the 17th. If you want to do something with us the 15th on Passover, let us know in advance. We'll try to set that up as well. It just depends on how stuff moves and what we can put together last minute. Kind of, it is last minute, but we're going to be there for those who want to come and show. We'll be there later on in October for everybody in America who's going to come and meet with us in that area, but we'll be in that area specifically on that date. And yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the podcast soon, or listen, or we'll hear from you soon. As always, we appreciate you. And this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, which will be tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.